Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking what researchers are calling an absolutely massive potential breakthrough in sleep medicine. If you or a loved one struggles with sleep apnea, you already know how intrusive the current treatments can be. But a really exciting new alternative is starting to emerge. You know, hooking up the hoses, strapping on that headgear, kind of feeling like a scuba diver in your own bed. Look, anyone who's ever wrestled with a CPAP mask at 2 a.m. knows the frustration. But I want you to imagine a radically simpler solution. What if treating sleep apnea was literally as easy as swallowing a pill before turning out the light? Now, continuous positive airway pressure, or CPAP, is absolutely the gold standard for treating obstructive sleep apnea. It works, right? But the hard truth is that a massive number of patients just cannot tolerate it. They try it, they hate it, they stop using it, and that leaves millions of people dangerously untreated and facing some severe long-term health risks. So let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the sleep apnea dilemma, then look at this once-nightly pill, break down the Synergy trial results, go over side effects and safety, and finally wrap up with the FDA approval timeline. All right, part one, the sleep apnea dilemma. To really understand the stakes here, I want you to listen to Dr. Patrick John Strawlow. He's a sleep medicine physician at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. He points out something super important. He says that in many other chronic diseases, things like cardiovascular disease, asthma, or type 2 diabetes, it would be unthinkable for the majority of diagnosed patients to just remain untreated. Yet, amazingly, that is exactly the dangerous reality for sleep apnea. The treatment gap is just way too wide. Moving on to part two, a once-nightly pill. So CPAP relies on physical force. It's essentially acting like a gentle leaf blower, forcing air into your throat to keep the airway open, almost like inflating a balloon. But the 8109 pill, well, it represents a total biological paradigm shift. Instead of forced air, it actually targets the underlying neuromuscular causes to prevent your airway muscles from sagging in the first place. Okay, so what exactly is 8109? It's an experimental oral pill that combines two specific medications, oroxabutynin and atomoxetine. Think of it kind of like giving your throat muscles a tiny cup of coffee. While your brain and body drift off into deep, restful sleep, these meds work together to keep these specific muscles in your airway active and engaged, just enough to stop them from relaxing and collapsing. Which brings us to part three, the Synergy trial results. Now, this wasn't just some small, isolated study. This was a massive 6-month trial across 69 different sites in the US and Canada with 646 adults who had mild to severe sleep apnea. And here is the absolutely crucial part. Every single patient in this trial was picked specifically because they either couldn't tolerate or completely refused CPAP therapy. So they tested this directly on the exact people who need it the most. And the data here reveals a really stark contrast. We're looking at the apnea-hypoxia index. That's just the medical term for how many times your breathing gets interrupted per hour. While the placebo group did see an 18% decrease, the AD109 group experienced a massive 44% reduction in nightly breathing interruptions. That is huge. But it wasn't just about breathing interruptions. AD09 also successfully improved the oxygen desaturation index and reduced the overall hypoxic burden. In everyday terms, it consistently stopped those dangerous sudden drops in blood oxygen. And it did this across all sorts of different patients, totally regardless of their body type or how severe their disease was. When we zoom out and look at the overall patient outcomes, the results are seriously impressive. 40% of the patients actually saw their disease severity category improve. And even more amazing, 18% achieved complete disease control. For a daily pill taking on something as stubborn as sleep apnea, those figures are just highly, highly encouraging. All right, part four, side effects and safety. Let's be real for a second. Any medication that alters neuromuscular function is going to carry side effects, right? 8009 is no exception. During the 6-month trial, participants did experience some mild but expected side effects. The most common ones were dry mouth, nausea, some instances of insomnia, and difficulty urinating. So the really important takeaway here when we talk about real-world tolerability is that 21% of patients in the trial actually discontinued the therapy entirely because of those side effects. It's a vital reminder that, while this is a game changer for many, it's not going to be a perfect side effect-free magic bullet for absolutely everyone. Treatment is always about weighing those benefits against the tolerability. And finally, Part 5, the FDA approval timeline. Because the FDA clearly recognizes the desperate need for CPAP alternatives, they actually granted 8109 Fast Track designation. Right now, Apnea, that's the company behind the drug, has officially submitted its new drug application. And based on the regulatory feedback they've gotten, they are targeting the first quarter of 2027 for potential approval. So we're really only a couple of years away from potentially seeing this hit pharmacy shelves. So what does this all mean? Are we finally entering an era where sleep apnea is managed as easily as just swallowing a daily vitamin? This 8109 pill represents a profound shift in how we handle chronic disease, moving away from those cumbersome machines and actually treating the biological root of the problem. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Definitely keep your eyes on 2027 and sleep well.